Hello. I'm going to talk about part three of Introduction to Spirit. As you probably know, I'm a qualified traditional Chinese acupuncturist. I'm trained in Chinese medicine along with other things like hypnosis and counselling with voice dialogues, as well as meditation techniques. I've been working with body, mind, spirit for over 30 years. And the one thing I do know about physical health, mental health, complete health, is that it's all connected. And one of the beautiful things about Chinese medicine is that they started to study a very long time ago the effect of different emotions on the person. So, for example, they discovered that joy or lack of joy has a strong effect on the heart. So if you're not allowed to have any fun for a very long time, it can actually injure your heart. I'm not quite sure what the mechanism is, but I imagine it's got something to do with the endocrine system and the wrong hormones, and it causes the blood vessels to be too compressed and not open and easy to flow. Then there's the emotion of anger, and anger has an effect on the liver. So frustration, resentment causes the liver to not work properly, and it's said that the liver is like the pace setter for the rest of the body energy. So if your liver energy gets compromised by frustration or resentment or anger, it actually causes it to stagnate, and you get a condition known as liver qi stagnation, which is very bad for you. It can cause all kinds of illness. Then there's fear, which affects the kidneys. Grief affects the lungs. When you think about it, the energy of the lungs, the qi that makes the organ work, is controlling breathing. And one of the first things we do when we experience grief very often is stop breathing. So when something's very sad, you often find yourself catching your breath because it's sad. So it's said that grief actually compromises the energy, the qi, within the lungs. And then finally there's the emotion of empathy or sympathy, which affects the stomach and spleen, and that can have a tremendous effect on energy levels, determining whether we have an appetite for life or not. I'm trained in traditional Chinese medicine, but I'm also fairly familiar with yoga and the system of the chakras. And each chakra has an emotion attached to it and a set of beliefs attached to it. So clearly something happens in the energy field of our soul when we experience certain emotions. And some emotions, if we use them as a kind of default position, well, it's almost like an old gramophone record with a groove in it, and it gets stuck in the groove. So we keep going back into the same emotion until we've processed it. In some cases, I think it takes many lifetimes. But safe to say, if we get stuck in an emotion, it will have a long-term effect on a particular organ. So we don't know how it does that. But if we take that the body, mind, spirit is, as I showed before, spirit is an energy field here, and like a magnetic field. Body is body, has a nervous system, and then mind is like the lens that translates the experience into a construct for the spirit. Well, the spirit basically approves or disapproves of the experiences and says get more or get less. So we're controlled by pain and pleasure to a large extent until we start to have spiritual experiences. Spiritual experiences happen quite naturally to everybody. They're those wonderful moments when we slow down. It could be that we're looking out over the ocean at the sun setting, and just for a few moments you realise you've not been thinking about anything. You've just been looking at what you can see, and you're kind of immersed in this experience of seeing the sunset over the ocean, and your heart lifts with a sense of, now that to me is an experience of spirit. which I'd call a spiritual experience. And the purpose of spiritual experiences is to stay in touch with self. So we should, all of us, at certain times of day, put aside some time to do some stilling, to get in touch with ourselves. I've done a couple of YouTubes on meditation using the I Am mantra. That's a very good starting place. There's lots and lots of different meditation schools. There are, my favourite, because I joined it 30 years ago, is the Transcendental Meditation Group. There's all kinds of different meditations. They're easy to do, and what they do, they put you in touch with the true self, which is here. Now, the problem is, if you read the Course in Miracles, we have something called the ego, and the ego distorts the mind, distorts the thinking processes. So it is true, I'm not a body, I'm free, I'm still as God created me. That's straight from the Course in Miracles. So this is what I am, and this is what I will always remain. But whether this remains attached to this, the body, is another question. And that depends on being happy. If you're not happy, your soul will give up. It will bail out. It'll press reset, if you like. And I think that the energy field, when we have a particular emotion in it, vibrates at a particular frequency corresponding to that emotion. So, for example, I think the lowest frequency emotions are things like fear, bitterness, hatred, jealousy, resentment, frustration. Those are low frequency vibrations, and they're associated with the lower chakras. So the base chakra is associated with fear. It's about having a right to be alive. So people that are plugged into the lower chakras, especially the base chakra, will be afraid. They'll always be looking for what's going to go wrong, that it's impossible for them to trust. It's hard to step into spiritual experiences because the fear itself blocks them from connecting with the true self. Then as you move up through the chakras, you get creativity, which is also attached to sexuality. We're taught to feel guilt or shame about these experiences. And then it moves into nourishment. Then it moves into my favourite, Anahata, which is the heart chakra. That's to do with love. And so you've got the 5 emotions connected to the 5 chakras. Whichever way you look at it, there is an energy field, which in yoga is known as prana, in Chinese medicine is known as qi, and emotions radically affect it. Now, what causes emotions? Well, emotions are a response to life impinging itself on us. So, and how we define ourselves. So if we are occupied in the lower chakras, if all we're thinking about is eating, drinking, sex, and having enough money, then anything that would take away money or deny us eating, food, or sex, we would then see as a threat. So that would evoke fear. So in Chinese medicine, there are 5 basic emotions, which is joy, sympathy, grief, fear, and anger. But each one of those starting places, which gives the person their personality, if they're focused on that one predominantly, will have different things they're afraid of. So, for example, the person that is joyful because they're a heart type will fear not being loved. The earth type that's into nourishment will fear not being nourished. The lung type, the emotion there is grief. They will fear not being respected. And then, of course, water is connected to fear. They'll fear any physical threat. And then in wood, the case is the emotion there is anger, and their fear is that they won't be able to organise things properly. So it doesn't matter where you start, where you're focused in which chakras, where different emotions will cause different vibrations within your whole system. And it's inescapable. So for us to develop healthy body, mind, spirit, and harmonise the 3 together so they work well, we've got to actually work on our emotional body as well as our physical body. It's all very well eating bran flakes every day, but if you if you're drinking fruit juice and eating bran flakes, but you're reading all the stuff in the newspapers and on the internet that makes you angry and makes you full of hate, you're still going to get problems. You're going to get either irritable bowel syndrome, you're going to get constipation, high blood pressure, and you can't blame it all on food. Our emotional diet is just as much nourishment to ourselves, because essentially we must remember that we're not bodies, we're spirits, and how do you nourish the spirit? It's got to be the emotional diet that nourishes the spirit. Now, that's another subject, and I'm going to get onto that with the very next video. Thank you for listening. The source be with you. It always is. Your source. Thanks.